I'm falling in love with the purple.
It's clear skies ahead, I would have thought, for Fremantle from here on. I think they deserve to be favourites with TABtouch, outright favourites with TABtouch to win the flag.
This is a huge chance in West Coast history to go to the home of footy and totally destroy that Collingwood love-in.
I think Harley Reid should be captain of the Eagles sooner rather than later. Now, whether that is next year or whether it's in 2028.
Well, hi and welcome to Zero Hanger HQ. I'm Mark Stevens and this is another edition of The Outer Wing brought to you by TABtouch. Real punters play here. I'm about to introduce you to the great man Digby Beacham, the best journo over in WA. Let's bring it on. Well, Diggers, great to see you again. Freo's still in the news and it's all still good news over there.
It certainly is, Steve-O, and there's a great deal of excitement, as I dare say you can appreciate, with them hosting St Kilda here on Friday night as they chase a 10th successive victory. So if they are able to achieve that, it will be the first time in the club's history.
And I shouldn't say this, but with Freo, you think, wow, 10 in a row. Will it get into their heads? Because, there hasn't been a lot of success over the years. This looks a really solid unit, but is there any danger of a letdown?
No, I don't think so, Steve. We've touched on this a few times, haven't we, throughout this season. This is a really, really mature group. It's still a young group, and the list demographic is very exciting if you're a purple person, but I would have thought what you're seeing is sustainable. Even that first half against Essendon last week, it was powerful, wasn't it? And did they put the cue in the rack in the final 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes? Yes, but I think they did that subconsciously, but also did the coaches did so when they elected to rest Sarong and Jackson for parts of that last quarter with a view to the St Kilda match.
Now, of course, they haven't won a flag. They played in a grand final, and they played pretty well that day too. They were competitive, even though they didn't get over the line. Where would this rank? 10 in a row in the club's history?
Yeah, it would be a significant moment, clearly. They're breaking new ground, and I suspect this group is going to break new ground time and time again over the next 2 to 3 years. Look, any time that you advance to a grand final for the first time in the club's history, it's a seismic achievement, and that's the case with Fremantle under Ross Lyon. You're right, they weren't embarrassed on that occasion against Hawthorn. They just didn't take their chances in front of goal, so that was significant. Their first finals victory, and a lot of the Fremantle folk, Steve, I will say, the first time they beat the big boys up the road, West Coast, in a derby. They had to wait, so there's been a few highs along the way. There's been a lot of lows associated with this football club, but it's clear skies ahead, I would have thought, for Fremantle from here on.
Yeah, no, as you mentioned the Essendon game, I was quite impressed with the fact that they turned up and they were clinical, professional. They put the game away in the first 2 or 3 minutes. Now, normally as a Freo supporter, you're turning up to the G, cold wintry day. Is it all too hard? Essendon gets on a roll and you can have a bit of a scare, but this was super professional, the way they put the Bombers to sleep.
Yeah, exactly right. Shea Bolton kicks a goal inside the first 30 seconds, so they've got their noses in front and they don't relinquish that advantage throughout. So you're right, drizzly, dreary, cold Melbourne afternoon, albeit at the MCG, which, it gets the juices flowing for these interstate sides and players, some of them, there for the first time. But all in all, you're looking at a Fremantle side which is extremely professional, and they're doing so much right. And I'll hand on heart here, Steve, I think they're the best side in the competition. I think they deserve to be favourites with TABtouch, outright favourites with TABtouch to win the flag. Yeah,
I'm with you. I think it's just the Dockers brand that's keeping everyone sort of at bay, if you like. It's just the trademark of the Dockers that they end up letting people down. But they do look the best side in the competition, and they've got St Kilda this week, obviously without Naz. Wilkie looks a bit sore. He's keeping that games run going. I'm not sure he's 100% fit. So they could really get hold of the Saints.
They could. And look, now Ross comes to town and, we know that Ross's association with Fremantle that had some really, really good moments, but he left. Look, to be fair, there weren't a lot of people that were disappointed when he did leave. I think everyone had enough of Ross. Fans, those inside the club.
What about you? What about you media guys over there? You fell out of love with Ross too?
Yeah, we're happy to see him go. Yeah, he wasn't missed, let's be honest. So look, there's no denying that he's an outstanding coach, Ross, and his football IQ is ridiculously high. But the time had come for a parting of the ways, and Fremantle since then have been rediscovering their identity. There's been a little bit more enjoyment within the four walls of the football club, and now they've built a list which I think is the envy of just about every other club in the competition. So, look, it's a big assignment for St Kilda to come over here, but we know that Ross can manufacture many things, and I dare say he'd love to spoil the party.
Well, that's it for the Dockers, and I've got to say I'm falling in love with the purple as well. Now, let's move on to West Coast. Of course, they've always been up and down this year, mostly down, but wowee. We didn't see that coming, Diggers.
No, I'll be honest, Steve. We sat here 7 days ago, didn't we? And we thought, oh, where are they at, this football club? Pressure building on Andrew McQualter. But what we witnessed there against, a side which probably isn't achieving what we thought they could this year. Again, they've been hit by injuries, haven't they, GWS? But West Coast attacked them, and they were able to really, really put some significant work. And I love the fact that Andrew McQualter said, you know what? They've got some key parts, and we're going to attack them. We're going to defend against those players like our life depends on it. And who would have thought? You get a win because of that. I thought Andrew McQualter did a great job. Milan Murdoch goes to Whitfield. Brady Hoff goes to Callaghan. Between them, I think they're restricted to 40 possessions. Those two can run up nearly 40 a game each. So I thought it was a huge tick in Andrew McQualter's coaching career.
Well, it was his finest hour, really, because we almost had him sacked, Diggers. I mean, he's been under the pump. The honeymoon's over. Suddenly, a fantastic performance. And coming into the G this week. Now, if you're McQualter, surely you're saying, let's spoil this party. Others are saying, look, they've picked us out because we're a poor side. Pendles has rested himself. I'm tired of the whole Pendle story before it's even finished or begun in many ways. He hasn't even run out yet. This is a huge chance in West Coast history to go to the home of footy and totally destroy that Collingwood love-in.
Exactly right. Now, there are a few players still at West Coast, Steve-O, who have experienced the greatest of greats, and that is a premiership. And I talk of Elliot Yeo, Liam Duggan. So that big stage there that they're going to be confronted by on Saturday afternoon isn't going to faze them. For a lot of other West Coast players, unless they're playing a preliminary final against a Victorian side or a grand final, they're not going to witness a crowd like they are going to be running out to on Saturday. Upwards of 80, 85,000. It's a huge, huge occasion. And you'd just like to think that some of these senior players, and I talk of Yeo, Waterman, Duggan, these experienced players lead, not by words, but by actions, because some of these kids, they're going to witness stuff and be under that much pressure and get that much advice from across the fence that they might be a little bit daunted by it. So Liam Baker, this is your moment. You lead this football club appropriately on a huge occasion.
And you'd have to question some of the senior leaders at times, Diggers. Baker's been good, but could have been. This is their chance to stand up and show we own this footy club. We're not going to be stomped upon. We don't want Collingwood to kick 3 or 4 goals early. And it's a test for McQualter too. They must come out in the first 10 minutes and be competitive.
Yeah, exactly right. Hold your ground. Hold your ground early for that, as you said, for the first 5 or 10 minutes. Don't sort of sit there and look halfway through the first quarter, look up the scoreboard and you say, oh, gee, Collingwood 6 goals, 339 to 1 behind. That can't be like that, because it then becomes a dreadfully long afternoon at the MCG, and basically you're just getting the you-know-what taken out of you. They can't do that. So, as I said, some of these senior players show the way. Show the kids that, yes, we can stand toe-to-toe with a heavyweight on a big stage, and we are further advanced in our development than what many of those in the media and in the football landscape think.
And we saw on Anzac Day, Essendon played a role in celebrating Scott Pendlebury. They let him free. He stood on his own in the square. He went forward and kicked a goal. They were almost high-fiving him. They made it too easy for Scott Pendlebury. He played one of the best games of his career. No one went near him, Diggers. Do West Coast tag Pendlebury? This is what I would do if I was coaching the Eagles. Put someone on him. Cut him out of the game.
Do you identify Pendlebury as more damaging, or do you look at Nick Dacos, or do you put your hands up in the air and say, I'm not sure we can nut Nick Dacos, so yes, we will run with Scott Pendlebury? That's the dilemma that the West Coast Match Committee needs to work through. I dare say, off what we saw last weekend, that they are going to put some work into some of these Collingwood prime movers. And drives me absolutely mad, Steve-o, because you and I have grown up in an era where you can employ a tagger or a run-with player. You can identify an opposition mid and say, you know what, we're going to do everything in our power to stifle you. But these days it's, we'll back in our system. All sides look at trying their best to defend the opposition forwards. All sides are very cognizant of, not allowing a rebounding halfback to have a heap of football. Yet it seems in the midfield, it's a free-for-all. And what we witnessed last week was West Coast say, no, Finn Callaghan is not going to run up 35 and 800 metres gained and kick 2 and ignite GWS. I just hope that they employ the same tactic this week.
I'd do double-edged. I'd go Pendles and Dacos. I think Pendles is the one that will ignite them. If he gets the footy, if he kicks an early goal, they're away. Shut Pendlebury out. Put him out of the game. Don't let him celebrate. Don't get involved in all this record-breaking hoo-ha. So cut him out first and also take Dacos out. I know that's over negative, Diggers, but it worked last week.
Well, exactly right. And it's the old saying, Steve, don't get beaten by what you know, isn't it? And Nick Dacos is going to have a heap of the football, and that Scott Pendlebury wields an enormous amount of influence for the Collingwood Football Club. So surely they're two magnets that West Coast are focusing on this week.
Well, it's fascinating. The Eagles, a big test. We'll find out where they're at. So that's the latest on the Eagles.
Could a mullet with tightly tapered sides reduce wind resistance, allowing for faster acceleration off the mark? Now that's something to think about. What are you really gambling with?
Now, this is a new segment, Diggers. We're calling it, well, you're going to have your list coming up shortly, but this is Beacham's headline. What's the big news in Perth? And you can create headlines with this. We're going to go with the captaincy at the Eagles. You've spoken about Liam Baker. We've spoken about the senior leaders there. Is it time to pull the trigger and bring Harley Reid in as the skipper of West Coast?
Absolutely. Now, when they do that, Steve, I'm not exactly sure, but he's the man. He is the alpha male inside that West Coast change room, and you saw what he was able to achieve. I know you've had your reservations about the influence of Harley Reid, but his performance against GWS on Sunday was immense. He got the 10 coaches' votes. He had a heap of the football. His last quarter had to be seen to be believed. He impacted the scoreboard as well. Harley Reid, who comes up for game 50 against Collingwood on the weekend, he is the man. He's 21 years of age. Now, he is contracted until the end of 2027. So is that a bit of a carrot for him? You make him captain? I'd like to think that Harley Reid is seeing enough from West Coast to want to commit long term. But irrespective of that, the time has come for West Coast to get the ball rolling, set it in motion, and anoint and appoint and focus on getting Harley Reid the sole captaincy of this football club, because you saw it on the weekend, Steve-o. They're drawn to him. When he's up and about, he has a huge influence on the kids, and even some of the senior players seem to be sparked by him. I'll go back to 1993 as a North Melbourne supporter. Wayne Carey was 21 years of age when he was entrusted with the captaincy. Now, he was still a bit raw. He still had some disciplinary issues, but those kinks were ironed out along the way, and it proved to be a masterstroke. I dare say the time has come now for West Coast to look at Harley Reid and say, you know what, you're our man. We've invested a heap in you. We think you can take this club to the promised land.
So you're saying round 1 next year, or round 0, hopefully we don't have a 0, it will be Harley Reid, exactly, captain of the Eagles.
I think Harley Reid should be captain of the Eagles sooner rather than later. Now, whether that is next year or whether it's in 2028, in his 5th year, I'm not fussed, but they have to acknowledge that Harley Reid is the man inside that locker room.
Is he sharp enough as far as the work he does around the playing group to get that done as captain?
I think he's getting better, Steve-o. And I'll say this. I know he met with Dusty Martin over the summer, and there's been the comparisons, the inevitable comparisons. I think he's far more comfortable in front of the camera and with the media and that side of things than what Dusty was at the same stage of his career.
Well, that
Dusty
wouldn't be hard,
okay.
Diggers. He never got comfortable.
I know, but
he used to run away from us in the car park.
Over here, it's a big club, Steve. You know what West Coast like, and everyone wants a piece of you. Like when West Coast win a game of football, you would have thought they'd won the flag on Monday here in WA. That they were up and about, the West Coast supporters. So there's a lot of pressure attached to being captain. Chris Judd would know that. And that was in a really successful, albeit controversial era of West Coast's history, indeed the AFL's history. But I just think that Harley Reid, and this is maybe the opportunity over the next 18 months, you groom him, you expose him to more of the requirements of a captain. But I think in time, the lure of captaining this club, once they do start to climb the ladder, it will be irresistible.
Yeah, big call, Diggers. I'm with you. Good footy clubs are brave, and it's braveness that pays off in the end. There's no point being stodgy if you're at the Eagles at the moment. Now, speaking of being brave, this is a tough one. Diggers' list this week. I've come up with an idea for you. We've got the mid-season draft next week here in Melbourne. Yep. So I thought, let's combine every AFL player in WA at the moment, both clubs, Freo and West Coast, and do a mid-season draft. Top 5, from pick 5 to pick 1, who you would take if you're building your club going forward, as in a draft. So, Diggers, start me with pick 5, and then we'll go through to pick 1. This is West Coast and Freo combined in the outer wing WA mid-season draft.
All right, well, pick 5 would be Murphy Reid. I know you're a massive fan, as is, I think, anyone who's watched footy. His ability to massage the ball by foot and find a target. He works the angles brilliantly. The upside's enormous. He's only, 20-odd or, 30 games into his career. He's a really, really talented young man. So Murphy Reid would be 5. 4 would be Harley Reid for all the reasons that we've outlined. I think you saw the best game of Harley Reid's career against GWS. He plays game 50. He's proving to be durable. His maturity is growing. His fitness levels, his conditioning, his acknowledgement of everything that you need to be an elite AFL player. It seems like the penny has dropped. So Harley would be 4.
Wow, that's a bit of a shock. You've just said he's an ex-captain. You've pumped up his tyres, and then you've got him at number 4 in the draft. Gee, that must be a good player coming up next.
Well, the one that I love, I know you know, Steve, I've got a bit of a man crush on him, Hayden Young. Now, I know he's battled some injuries and he's missing again this week through concussion, but you saw firsthand what he's able to do at a key stage against your Bulldogs at Marvel Stadium earlier this year. He's a genuine talent. He is an A-grader all day, every day, Hayden Young. Still only 25. If he can get a run at it in the back end of this season, Fremantle can most definitely win a flag. So Hayden Young, 3. Luke Jackson, for mine, is the best big man in the competition. I think he should be the All-Australian ruckman. I think if you stopped it right here, right now, the competition, at the halfway point, he is the number 1 big man ahead of Max Gawn. I know that's a big call, and even Brodie Grundy, who's having a wonderful season. So Luke Jackson would be number 2. And Josh Tracy, number 1. I think he's the best power forward in the competition. Now, he hasn't kicked as many goals as others. Respectfully, if Joel Amati is worth 1 to 1.2, Josh Tracy's worth 2 million a season. I think Josh Tracy would play Joel Amati off a break as a violent, attacking, key position target. So Josh Tracy, for mine, would be number 1 out of the 40-odd, or actually, of the 80-odd players that you have a choice of over here in the West.
I'm with you there. Josh Tracy, for me, is outstanding. The early comparisons with Wayne Carey, and that's huge. Wayne Carey's the best player I've seen by a considerable distance. An absolute superstar, Diggers, you'd agree. And there's signs of Wayne Carey in Josh Tracy, and I agree. If Joel Amati's worth 1.2, he's worth 5, because Amati just wouldn't even do up his bootlaces. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. I'm not being disrespectful to Joel. He's having a really good season, but Josh Tracy is everything you want in a key forward. He's a leader. He's durable. The greatest ability is availability, and Josh is playing a lot of football, and he's been a key in this surge up the ladder from Fremantle. So, yeah, Josh Tracy 1, Luke Jackson 2, Hayden Young 3, Harley Reid 4, and the other Reid, who's an elite talent himself, Murphy, number 5.
Love it, Diggers. I love the list. It's been a great addition. Now, have you got something for me for this week? A couple of bets for TABtouch. Real punters play here. Gamble responsibly, of course. Diggers, hit me with a couple of bets.
Okay, so we'll start with the Fremantle St Kilda game here at Optus Stadium. You can get $3 about Shea Bolton to have it 20 times and kick a goal, and also Michael Frederick to kick one or more majors. So that's $3 with TABtouch. Now, the $2.95 on offer, I think, is good value for Collingwood to win by 40 points or more against West Coast, and Nick Dacos to have 30 or more disposals. $2.95 about that same game multi.
Not a bad one, Diggers. You've just talked up West Coast chances and said they're going to get rolled by 40 plus and Dacos is going to get off the chain, but it's every chance to happen. I really do hope that West Coast are competitive this Collingwood sort of week of celebration. If you're a non-Collingwood person, I think here in Melbourne, you're going to have a soft spot for West Coast on the weekend. Thanks again for your time, Diggers. We'll be back with Outer Wing again next week.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.